Hey y'all, welcome to the Clan Hernandez podcast. There are literally thousands of other things you could be listening to right now, so thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Our hope is that as you hear our conversations and stories, that we can provide some good laughs, encouragement, tips for navigating certain difficulties in life, and possibly even new perspectives on God the Father. We love y'all. Let's jump in. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Clan Hernandez podcast. It is Nate and Brooke. And today we got a heavy one for you guys. We got a pretty heavy one. And let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about infertility, disappointment.
Yeah.
Just part of our story that we dealt with concerning infertility and just trying to get pregnant for a while. But I'm going to go ahead and let Brooke kind of start us off there with that, and just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey with that. Where did it start? All that good stuff.
Yeah. So I want to preface with the fact that Nate and I, we didn't do anything before we were married. We didn't have sex before we were married. Sure. So that wasn't like something we had to ever worry about. And so once we got married, I was like, well, I don't want babies yet. And we'd been both told that we were super fertile. Our families were Nate was a happy accident, as some would put it. My parents got pregnant with me when they were on birth control. So our families were super fertile. And so everyone would tell us hey, you need to be careful till you want to get pregnant. And so
all of my aunts, they got pregnant pretty young.
Yeah. In high school, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I want to say it was high school, but I'm sure
sorry if we're wrong, guys.
Yeah. But it was pretty young. I just remember that they got pregnant pretty young. And my mom got pregnant young, and again on your side, everyone's fertile myrtles.
So when we finally, after a few years of being married, we felt the Lord tell us to start trying, and I was like, I felt it. We were at a conference. You were leading worship, and I was there to just kind of do ministry. But the Lord was really like, okay, Brooke, I want you guys to start trying to have a family. And so I was like, okay. And I'm an all in kind of girl. So I went home and talked to you and threw away my birth control the next day. Stop taking it.
Let's go.
We came.
Hooray for the wives throwing away their birth control, because that means good things.
Means the babies. So then we, yep. So then we, I also am the kind of person that if I'm going to do something, like I said, I'm going to do it all in. So I got ovulation tests. I was starting to do Whole30 so that I could cleanse my body of everything. And I was like, certainly I'm going to get pregnant so quick. And this baby's going to have the most beautiful womb that's so healthy to grow in. And it's literally what I thought. I was like, man, I am paving the way for a green.
Prepping your womb.
Yeah, baby to be growing in here. And so at this time, we're at our church that we talked about last podcast, and
Overflow Church.
A few months before, one of the ladies at our church had dealt with a miscarriage, and we were in a prayer set, and our pastor felt the Lord tell him that Overflow was going to be the house of the open womb. And we started trying to get pregnant in August, and by October there were 7 women pregnant in our church was not big.
No.
And I remember just thinking, okay, certainly I'm going to get this blessing. I literally helped plant this church.
Yeah.
I better be getting pregnant soon. Yeah.
And you did all the right things.
I did all the right things.
All the typical things. You checked off all the boxes.
I did everything.
Yeah.
So I left no stone unturned. That's for sure.
If y'all know anything about Brooke, she is type A, go-getter, kind of just when she wants to do something, she's going to accomplish it no matter what.
Probably in a very terribly short amount of time because it's the only thing that's on my mind. But with pregnancy, you can't do that. You know what I mean?
You can do, you know what I'm saying?
You can't. You
can do a lot of things, you know what I'm saying?
Do a lot of things. We did all the things. So as time went on, we didn't tell a lot of people that we were trying because we wanted it to be a surprise because we were like, we're going to get pregnant so quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So after almost a year of trying, we started telling our community, and asking them to pray for us.
Because you were starting to get pretty discouraged that it was taking a year. Gosh.
Like 4 months in, I was like, what is happening?
Right.
And then again, all of those women that had gotten pregnant when I started were all growing. Their bellies were growing. All I could think about was, this could be me, and it's not. And so then by the time we hit a year, all of those women had already had babies. They were already back at church, nursing their babies, hanging out in the nursing mother's room, while I was sitting in the front row just like, I'm got no baby. So I was finally like, you know what? I need my community to help me and rally around me. And so I told our people, but we didn't see a fertility doctor until a year later because we didn't have insurance to cover it. So finally after...
Well, I remember right around the year mark, you and I started talking about seeing someone, and I don't remember if if you were just kind of like, well, I already know what they're going to say, or if you actually started to talk to someone. But I just remember your answer to my questions about like, hey, should we talk to someone? Your answers were like, basically like, well, it's only been a year. And that a lot of fertility doctors won't.
If you guys don't know, when you're dealing with infertility, no fertility doctor will really even see you until it's been a year. And so, which is kind of hard if you're dealing with that, because that's at least 12 times of heartache, of you not being pregnant. But that's just the way that it works. And so I knew if I saw anyone pre a year, they wouldn't do anything for me. They'd say, come back at a year of trying. So after it had been a year, then we didn't have health insurance or something. That's what it was. I turned 26. And so I got off mommy and daddy's health insurance, government health insurance. And so we had to wait until you got health insurance that would cover fertility treatment, because a lot of insurances don't.
Sure.
So finally we get to a place where I can
where was I working at that time?
You were working at Apple.
I was still at Apple.
At Apple,
okay.
Which they do have good.
Great. But as a part-time employee,
but you were part-time. That was our issue.
Yeah, as a part-time employee, you could still, I want to say you could still get benefits as a part-time employee, but you're already getting limited hours. It was a great hourly rate. Like, Apple's a fantastic job, and it allowed me to pay for school and all that, and my debt, and get an engagement ring for Brooke, and it was great, but it wasn't enough to raise a family, start a family, have insurance, and still live, comfortably. So, And then I moved.
You got your new job. The job.
The current one. Okay.
And so they have great health insurance. And so I started looking for a fertility doctor. It had almost been 2 years at this point. And I had kind of just come to a place where I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not striving for this anymore. Like, I'm done trying to do all the things. I don't care. I'm going to eat Whataburger. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to care. Like, not that I'm not going to care. Of course I still cared. But it was just like, I'm done trying. I tried all the things. It didn't work. And
it's going to happen when it's supposed to
almost
happen.
I was just like, I had this mindset of God's going to do it when he wants to anyways. So I'm like, it was almost like a little, like I was mad at him.
Yeah, you were mad. You were mad.
I was like, you're going to do what you want. It's like when I tell you, you're going to do what you want anyways. So I'm not going to tell you what to do.
She has this thing in her mind, and we talked about this 2 nights ago. She has this thing in her mind where she's like, Nate's just going to do whatever he wants, even if I don't want him to do it. And that's not true.
Well, I wasn't right about the Lord, so maybe
all my boys can back me up. They all know how many times I'm like, yeah, I probably can't do that.
You're right, babe.
Because, girl,
I know you love me. I'm the best.
You know what I'm saying? We have our struggles, but, this is a pretty healthy relationship, I'd say.
So I was just kind of frustrated at the Lord at that time. And so I started looking for fertility doctors because I didn't know anyone who had been through fertility treatment really here. And so I found a lady who specialized in endometriosis, which is what I thought I had. But I didn't really tell a lot of people that I thought I had endometriosis. Sure. Do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, just like what, what did you go through that you felt that you had that? Yeah, because there's a lot of women, I would assume, that, are dealing with infertility, but maybe have not seen anybody yet. And it's like, I don't know, what were some things that you experienced?
So when you have endometriosis, you have really heavy cycles. and very, very painful, like debilitating cramps.
Pretty much your whole life.
Literally since my first time having it, that's what I had. And
people would tell you all the time, sorry to interrupt you. People would tell you all the time that like you were kind of exaggerating a little bit in your pain.
Yeah. People just thought I had a low pain tolerance.
Yeah.
But guess what? I had 2 natural births. So it ain't the pain tolerance, y'all. It was actual pain. So, you have really bad pain. You, a lot of times you're like anemic, which that should have been a sign. Like I've been anemic almost all my life because you lose a lot of blood.
Sure.
And so, another symptom of endometriosis is you also have like pain and cramping even when you're not on your cycle because it's scarring on your uterus. Yep. So the reason you can't get pregnant is because science class, the sperm and the egg can't implant on the uterine lining. So maybe you have a sperm and an egg come together, but it's not going to implant onto the lining. And you'll ultimately, it'll shed when you have your period and all the uterine lining sheds. So there was your free science lesson. That's what I thought I had. I was pretty certain my aunt had it on my dad's side.
Your aunt did have it. Mm-hmm. And you said you were pretty certain
that I had it as well.
Yep.
So I had scheduled this appointment, but it's a specialty appointment. So it takes months to see the person. So
I remember when you scheduled that.
I remember when I scheduled it, and I remember what you said to me.
What did I say?
Do you remember what you said to me?
Don't.
I was like, babe, I scheduled this. I'm so scared. And you were like, I just sounded so white. And you were like, and you said to me,
you're white.
I am very, very white. You said, like, that's so exciting. You were so excited for me. And I remember thinking, that's not exciting. That's terrifying. Like, I could be told we could never have kids. And you responded by saying, well, but then we're going to learn what you have and then we can pray against it. And I remember thinking like, wow, I just got Jesus juked by my husband. Like, what the heck? In a moment of weakness. No, I'm just kidding.
And
I for real was like so convicted in that moment. And I was like, I need to have a mindset shift. Like, it is not woe is Brooke. It's not. Like, the Lord can do it and he maybe will do it. Like, I remember in that moment I had like a little bit more hope. Like, okay, maybe I will get pregnant one day. Like, I have him with me fighting there for me, with me, you know?
Well, and I don't hate Jesus jukers, but like Jesus jukers, but I really don't like Jesus juking.
Do that.
I hate when people do it because I'm like, bro, stop. Just stop.
It was like a
in that
Holy Spirit moment.
Yeah, in that moment, I wasn't trying
to
to like Jesus juke you. I was just
you were so mad.
Genuinely, I was excited about it.
Yeah.
And you were like, why? Like, why are you so excited about it? Because I was like, well, we're gonna know.
And then we're
gonna know what's specifically what's wrong, and then we can pray against it. And in the natural, we can, some practical steps. We can actually go get treatment for that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm very much a, very spiritually minded, but at the same time, very practical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We were not against getting medical help. Let's just put it that way. So then we, at our church a few months later, it was a few weeks before my appointment was scheduled. We had a prophet come to our church. And Ron Campbell. And he has been to our church multiple times. And let me tell you, every time he's given Nathan a word, but he ain't never given me a word. So I was going into this and I was like, Lord,
okay, but
if you could just look on your lowly servant. Hold on.
But this is my how many like at CFNI and like all of our relationship.
Again, if the Lord could just look at me and give me a prophet.
This is not like a boast or anything. This is not a boast.
But this isn't apparently Nate needs to hear the Lord speak, because we would be walking down like the hall and someone would just be like, I have this word for you. And it's like this crazy word.
Dude, we'd be in the sanctuary like during a major like worship night or whatever, and the guest speaker a couple times.
Yep.
Just out of the
over 1,000 people.
Like 1,000 people in the room, and like at least a couple times.
Probably because you're tall, so they could see you better.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
stood
it was.
Out, literally.
They couldn't see me. I just needed to stand up a little bit higher.
Look, there's guys way taller than me in these rooms, and there was just multiple occasions over and over and over, just different like prayer nights and worship nights and conferences and just different places. I'm always getting prophetic words, people coming up and saying things over me that,
and it's always pretty much the same thing. So it's clearly the Lord.
Yeah. And it's like people who are completely unrelated, different
don't
times.
Don't even know you, don't even know each other.
And so these prophetic words that I'd get often, she'd be with me a lot.
I'd literally be like, is the Holy Spirit right here for me to catch that word right there?
Me too, Lord.
Yeah, right.
You got something for me?
We're one, so like I guess that's my word.
And so for almost our entire relationship, Brooke had never had a prophetic word given to her, and most of the times
from somebody I didn't know.
Right. People who knew her.
I know had like really encouraged me, because that's really what prophecy is for building up people, right? And so I'd been encouraged, and people would tell me things, and I'd be like, yeah, it's spot on. But never had anyone ever I didn't know given me a word ever. And go ahead.
And for people who don't really like, maybe there's people listening right now that don't really understand what a prophetic word is, or they kind of might have an idea of that. But in the Christian world, you have spiritual gifts. You have the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and one of them is the gift of prophecy. And it's just the ability to, it's not like, glass orb.
Yeah, no.
Like it's not, it's something that like I can ask the Lord, or I can ask the Lord, hey, Lord, what are you saying about this person? Or like, I'm going to go ask them if I can pray for them and give me a word for them, or give me some kind of encouragement about something they're going through that only you would know about. Or sometimes the Lord just impresses it upon you without you even asking.
Yeah.
You'll just look at a person, or you'll start thinking about someone, and the Lord will show you something about them. That's a word of knowledge.
Yeah.
Or a prophetic word is more so like, the Lord shows you something that maybe they're going to go through, or that like something that they're called to do. And it's like someone could be going, like want to go to medical school or something like that. And I could get a word from the Lord saying, hey, they're called to go to medical school, and maybe they're overrun by fear. Right.
Yeah.
And so I can go up to them and be like, hey, maybe I'm praying for them or something. I can tell them, I felt like God is telling you that you're called to the medical industry or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
they'd be like, wow, that's confirmation.
Yeah, you're either wrong or you're right, and it's a faith thing, right? And anyway, so we'd gotten prophetic words. I'd gotten a lot of prophetic words over our dating period. Mm-hmm. And you never got any.
Yeah.
Ever.
And I think it's a lot of also for me, not that you don't hear the Lord, but I definitely I have a gifting in moving in prophecy. And so I think a lot of times the Lord would just kind of in our quiet time show me things. Mm-hmm. And so, but with getting pregnant, it was just not that way. I think it was because I was so hurt by him. Mm-hmm. I didn't even let him come in and try to encourage me, because I was like, you've let me down. I'm not going to cry too many times in this area. So I don't want your encouragement. And what would encourage me is if you let me get pregnant. That's what I wanted to tell him. Probably I did tell him. But this prophet came to our church, and I was sitting in the front row next to my pastors because I'm on staff. And so I need to be able to do ministry. If anyone needs me to do ministry, I was recording all the words and everything. And so Nate's in the back doing sound, and the prophet comes up to me, and he's asking me, I don't remember what he asked me, but he asked if he could pray for me. So as he's praying for me, he tells me, can you get, he's like, do you have any children?
Well, he started talking about you as a mother and how great of a mom you are.
He was like, you feel like you're a good mom and a good this, but you don't feel like you have anything else. And I was literally like, that's the opposite.
She's like, I finally get one. And it starts off what felt wrong.
It almost felt too raw, because it was really, Lord, the one thing that I want, and he's getting it wrong in that single area.
About being a mom.
Gosh, yeah. I was like, that was kind of painful at the beginning, but he redeemed himself. So then so in the middle of him saying all that, he realized,
I think he picked up on just something. Yeah. And he was like, wait, and go ahead.
He's like, do you have kids? And I said, no, I don't.
And you started crying. And
he said, can I pray for you? And I was like, please, God, pray for me, because I think now you're getting it, sir. So then he starts praying for me, and
it's like a tuner on the radio, he's like,
dial,
oh, there it is.
Yeah. I don't think he was wrong in it. I bet if I listened back in a few years, that's probably a word I need in a few years.
Mom,
I really feel like that's not, I don't think he was off.
No.
I think it was just maybe something I needed further on down the road.
Yeah.
So he was praying for me, and he specifically prayed. He was like, you're going to get pregnant and you're going to have children and you're going to be healed of endometriosis, which I hadn't really told a lot of people I don't think I really told anyone but you.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I had.
I legit don't think you told anybody.
Because all of my friends had PCOS.
Because you hadn't actually gone to see anybody officially to tell you and confirm whether you actually had endometriosis. You were just like, I think that's what I have.
And I told only Nate. And so
the moment he says,
I lost it, y'all.
He's like, and the Lord's going to, heal you of endometriosis. I mean, she is bawling.
Weeping.
Because immediately once he's like, wait, you do you even have any kids? Her no response was like in tears. And he started just like, it was just everything he was hearing was just right on.
Right on.
And again, we hadn't told anybody that we thought it was endometriosis.
Everyone in the church knew that I was believing for a baby. Everyone in the church was warring for me to have that baby. Yeah. So really that prophetic word was so encouraging to everyone in that room. Oh, dude,
the whole room was in tears.
Like it was crazy. So,
well, and just to kind of give some clarity, what are some, like for people who don't know, what are some other things that people dealing with infertility could have as the root cause? Like there's endometriosis, PCOS.
A big one is male infertility, but a lot of men don't want to get tested. Let me tell y'all, we had that brown paper bag with the cup sitting on our thing because it was on that counter. Get tested if I didn't get pregnant.
I told Brooke, I was like, babe, maybe I'm the problem. Like maybe something's wrong with me.
And I was like, no, it's me. Like, I'm broken.
No. And I was like, I'm genuinely okay with. I want to know what the issue is.
Yeah.
And so I was totally willing to get tested to see if maybe I was the issue.
Yeah. So there's several reasons that you could be dealing with it. It's a lot of hormonal imbalance and different things.
A lot of different reasons for infertility. So for someone to specifically hear
the exact
endometriosis
thing that I thought I had was just like, whoa, that's crazy.
Right.
So I leave that really encouraged. Like finally, I had been very disappointed, and then for almost a year probably, and then I was almost like I was hoping again. Like, okay, like the Lord saw me. I think I needed to know that. Like I was seen by the Lord. I was known. He hadn't forgotten me. And so every day I would listen to that word on my way to work. And I'd just be like, I'm believing, Lord. Like I know you're going to do it. But I still went to my, not yet. 2 weeks later was supposed to start my period, and I did. And I remember just being like,
so disappointed.
It was like worse than like any other time, because finally, like I even had that. It was like I had that promise too. Like it wasn't just I had the hope. It was like, you promised me. Why didn't you do it? Like, why wouldn't you have just waited a few weeks to promise it to me?
Sure.
Until like it would actually happen.
Right. Because again, to preface all of that, the Lord had told you to start
trying to.
Yeah. Because what was happening, guys, was that like, part of the story is that our first few years of marriage, we were pretty adamant that we weren't going to get pregnant. She was on birth control. She just, I've been ready to be a dad since I was like 18.
Yeah.
It's that Latino blood. It's that Latino, like
we fallen behind.
Hey bro, year 16 hit and I'm like, hey,
no, absolutely.
Where's the mommies at? Let's go. I'm kidding.
They were nowhere to be found.
I wasn't ready
because I was what you needed.
No, but I remember like being pretty young, because of just like, my father issues and stuff. And just like, I wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
And so for the longest time I wanted to be a dad. So, I mean, those first few years of us not, trying to have a kid, I was cool with it, but I was ready. And so whenever Brooke, you came to me one day and you were like, hey, I really feel like God is telling me and kind of convicting me about that, because for you, it was more so, if I can speak for you, I remember you were telling me that like you were the one that was like, I'm not ready to have kids.
Yeah,
I don't want
100%.
kids. And then you said
I wanted kids, but just not yet.
Not then. And I remember you telling me that like the Lord asked you, well, like, have you asked me what I want for you or something
exactly.
like that? You want to expound on that a little bit?
I felt the Lord when I first when I first felt the Lord tell me to start trying, I felt he had said, you're trying to fit your plan into my will. And I was like, dang, okay, well, I'm just trying to force his hand. And that's when I was like, I won't do that anymore. Sure. And I really felt him tell me, like, I want you to start trying to have kids. Yeah. And because we were going to wait a little longer. Yeah. And
I think you told me that you wanted to wait till year 3. Okay.
So we got married in 15. We started trying in 17. After we'd already been married for over 2 years. And then, so we anyways, fast forward to, I couldn't get pregnant. Right. So I'm trying to get back on track before I lose my train of thought. Because it's getting to the really good part. So I didn't get pregnant and I was really defeated. Well, a month goes by 2 weeks go by. And if you don't know science, again, we're getting a lot of science lessons here. After 2 weeks, usually you ovulate. Ovulation is what gets you pregnant. If you do the deed, don't just get pregnant if you ovulate. So, I always knew when I was ovulating.
You don't just get pregnant just because you ovulated.
Well, I just need them to know
That's news to me.
Well, now you know. So, like and subscribe for more scientific facts.
Science with Brooke.
Science with Brooke. So anyways, I go to the doctor, my fertility appointment. Finally it came and I was like, shoot, I'm getting answers.
Right, because we scheduled an appointment with a fertility specialist, right?
Yeah, a long time ago. So the one I was talking about,
that's
the
right.
endometriosis.
It took a while.
Yep.
Sorry.
So you're good, baby. You good. So this is why I schedule things and you just show up to them. So
this is real life, y'all.
This is real life.
I suck at schedules.
So we go to the fertility appointment and the doctor tells me straight up, like, your blood work looks great. You're anemic. What's new? Everything looks, she did an exam. You look fantastic. And she was like, hey, you're ovulating. You need to go home and you need to have sex. And I said, I know I'm ovulating and I will take care of that. So we go home with the cup because you had to do your sample later that month. So she told me, I left and she said, everything looks great. And she even said in our appointment, we're going to do all of these things in the next 6 months to make sure that you don't have anything else going on. She said, but after 6 months, if you're not pregnant, we're going to do surgery because I think you have endometriosis. And the only way that we can confirm it and take care of it is through surgery because we have to scrape your uterus and get all the scarring gone. And then you have pleasant. I'll be asleep. So I don't know.
Scraping the uterus.
I mean, yep, that's true. So we leave and I was just like, you know what? I kind of feel hopeful. I have 6 months of planning answers. You know, every test is either a yes or a no. I'm going to get some answers. Either I know I don't have this or I do have this, you know? So we leave, we go home. 2 weeks later, my best friend, Haley, came into town and it was her birthday.
This is wild, y'all.
Okay, so it was her birthday, and this is when we're getting to the good part. Sorry, 30 minutes in. If you lasted this long, thank you so much. So she comes into town, and she's like, hey, I knew she'd been trying to get pregnant for 9 months, and she also couldn't get pregnant. And she was like, hey, her birthday was the next day, and she was late on her period. And I was like...
They were in town to celebrate.
To her birthday.
Right, their birthday.
And so she was like, I said, well, girl, I got one more pregnancy test left. More. I said, I'm not going to need this. I was kind of defeated again. So I was like, I'm not going to need this here. You go ahead and take it.
And again, how long had this been after the prophetic word?
About a month and a half. Okay. So I give her this thing. I mean, I had 2 weeks after my appointment, right? I give her the little test and she takes it and it's positive. And I remember thinking, Lord, how dare you in my own home with my last pregnancy test and it wasn't me. Like, come on.
But you're conflicted
because I was so excited for her.
You're so happy for her.
Because she had...
Genuinely.
Oh my gosh. We were crying. We were so excited. We have video. I was so excited. But then I went to bed that night crying. let's be honest. I remember you holding me in bed as I bawled. Because it was just like, man, I'm so excited for her, but also like, come on, God, like blow after, like, why did you encourage me just to like not let it happen is how I felt, right? And it's so funny, like hindsight 2020, like I look now and I'm like, oh, this is such an amazing story, Brooke. Like just if you could have waited 12 more hours and you wouldn't feel that way, you know? So the next day I wake up and I was also late, but didn't think anything of it because I had been late several times and I was not pregnant. So I was not getting excited about it.
Because endometriosis doesn't like...
No, my cycles were normal, but then there was times where if I was stressed...
Yeah, that you were late. Like I remember...
I was 2 weeks late one time.
Yeah, you were late. Not all the time, but it wasn't uncommon for you to be late.
Yeah. So with endometriosis also, like, you have a normal cycle.
Sure.
You're not like PCOS where your cycle barely ever comes.
Oh, yeah.
My cycle was on point, which made it even almost not harder, but it was just a different kind of hard because it was like, I knew when I ovulated. I knew what we did when we ovulated. I knew that then I wasn't pregnant. Why is this not working?
Yeah. Like you had like app trackers for everything.
Listen, y'all, type A right here. I was crazy. So the next day I go to church. It was a Sunday. And I tell my pastor's wife, Pastor Leslie, about it. And she's like... Because
Leslie knew Haley. Haley used to go to our church.
Yeah, it was just... She helped with the youth. And so I tell her. And she's like, well, maybe you are pregnant. And I remember just like looking at her. And I was like, I'm not pregnant. And I was like kind of rude. Because I was just like, why would you keep giving me hope? And then my heart being crushed.
I don't think you were being rude. I think in that moment you were just...
I was a little short with her. I mean, and I did apologize.
Sure. I think it was just because, yeah, you were just frustrated.
Also, I was hormonal because I was like, I'm PMSing. Oh my gosh. So then on our way home, I was like, I need to take a test. So I and you went into the store, took me to the store, got a pregnancy test for me. It was one of the ones that say pregnant or not pregnant. And I was
you were adamant. You were like, I don't want the...
I've never gotten those.
Well, yeah, because you didn't want the ones that were lines that were... You wanted the one that says...
No. I was the opposite.
It was the opposite. That's what it was.
I never had gotten those because I was like, the last thing I need to see is not pregnant.
Yeah, like the words not pregnant.
Literally, I was like, come on. So those are the only ones in the store. So I was like, really?
That's right.
God.
That's right.
At this point, y'all know I'm clearly bitter. The Lord's helped me. So I get it, go home, take the test. Nate's out taking the dog to the restroom.
Haley's still in town at this point.
But not at the house.
But,
and so I was like, I take the test, not thinking anything of it, go back and look after my timer goes off. And I'm like, I dropped to the ground bawling. And I'm like, Nate, you need to get in here. And you're like, what? And then I
napping?
No, you were taking the dogs out to the restroom. So you come into the restroom and I'm like, look at that. You look and you're like dancing. You're like, we're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. You're like dancing around the room. So excited. Like, I'm going to be a dad. And I'm literally like on the floor weeping, like,
and laughing and just
laughing. And I'm just like, is this real life? Like, what the heck? So then I was like, I have to take another test. Thankfully, I didn't throw out that pee. So I just stick that in the cup again. And I did it again. And guess what? Pregnant.
Yeah.
I said, well, these are probably defective because I'm that kind of person. So I was like, we have to go to the store and get more. So we go to the store and get more, all pregnant. So time goes, and I remember after all of this, we sit on the edge, after we called everyone we needed to call to tell that we were pregnant, I sat on the edge of the bed and I remember telling you, every bit of sorrow that I had during infertility is worth it for the amount of joy that I feel in this moment. Like it was just so good to see the Lord. Like I was the first one of all of the people at our church, of the women who had been trying to get pregnant that I had been a part of. I was the first one to get pregnant. All of us had been trying for almost 2 years. And it was just really encouraging to know, like, oh my gosh, the Lord can heal. And he did it in my life. Like now I can believe for these women.
Come on.
And
well, because go ahead.
You go and then I'll go.
Go ahead with which what?
I was gonna say which I did get to do, and now 3 of the 4 women, all of us have had babies naturally. Like the Lord miraculously healed us. Yeah. And
well, what I was gonna say was a little bit earlier we were talking about how at our church we hit a boom of pregnancies.
A wave is what we like to call it.
Yeah, we call them waves because we have literally had handfuls of waves of women who will just get pregnant, like our church.
All at the same time.
And and we genuinely believe it's due to the word that Pastor Josh got, saying that this house would be the house of the open womb.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also had a handful of women who've gone through multiple miscarriages.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, handfuls of women,
Yeah.
you know, and infertility and all that stuff. And, man, we've had some wild stories. We had a woman who at our church who her entire life had never had.
She'd had maybe 3 periods.
Yeah.
And her and her husband been trying for 7 years,
and I think didn't the doctors say that, like, for her, it was just.
She'd seen 15 different doctors, and she came to our church, and after like a month of being at the church, got pregnant naturally. Not saying that like that's the miracle end all be all, but like it's just amazing how the Lord does something so special in that house.
Different churches, different, you know, groups of believers will have, as we've kind of been in, you know, pursuing the Lord for, you know, as long as we have, you'll notice that like different groups of believers will have certain like anointings and gifts for certain things.
Yeah.
And for us, our church has always been, it's always naturally attracted to things. It's women who have gone through infertility, miscarriage, and people who've had church hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and so along with the waves and waves and waves of women that we have that'll just get pregnant, we also, you know, had a large group of women that, you know, in different seasons will be larger and different seasons will be, you know,
smaller.
It'll get smaller. But you had a group of women, you know, that were all dealing with similar things. Mm-hmm. And like you said,
but it's hard. Like, I will say, if you've ever dealt with infertility, you understand, and you've had women walk with you who are also dealing with it. I stinking dreaded those conversations. Like, I did not want to have to tell them that I was pregnant. Like, that was really hard for me. And some of them couldn't celebrate me. And they couldn't even talk to me as I was dealing with it. And that was hard for me, but I also had to understand, like, man, I had been there a year ago, you know? And so...
Well, even with Haley just a few days before.
You know what, 12 hours before. You're right, boy.
Yeah, the day before,
Check my heart. Help me, Lord. So then I have my baby. The Lord, you know, everyone's so excited because I have Isabella, our baby. And
well, Haley came to the house like
and a day or
so, like
that same day, and I got to tell her.
So she's like, hey, come to the restroom. It was
her actual birthday.
And what's wild is just it was like the day before we just found out that Haley was pregnant. And dealing with her infertility issues, and then the very next day in the same restroom, the same house, like you find out that you're pregnant, and so you guys are best friends, both finding out day after, like right after each other, that you're both pregnant together. It was and so beautiful. Man, what a beautiful moment!
And it was August 4th.
August 4th.
Remember that date?
2019. Y'all exactly remember that date, y'all.
Because 2 years later, every year we would celebrate August 4th, and so 2 years later, a few days shy of August 4th, I had been trying to lose the last bit of my baby weight. And I went to go put...
Yeah, you still look good, girl.
Thank you, baby.
You always look good. You know
thank you, baby. So I go to put Bella in the car, and I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I'm like, what is happening? I mean, it is the middle of summer, and I'm anemic. Like, there are a lot of factors. But I felt Holy Spirit tell me, take a pregnancy test. And I remember thinking...
Well, I remember you told me, you're like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test.
Because I felt the Holy Spirit tell me to. And I remember thinking, that's weird. Like, you were traveling a lot.
Yeah.
I'd only had 2 cycles. And I was like, okay, that's very unlikely that happened.
Yeah, well, then you told me, and I was like, Brooke, you're not pregnant.
Yeah, I remember him telling me you're not pregnant. And I was like, well, I just think I need to take it. So I take it, and I was like, go check that. Because I looked at it, and there was a faint second line.
Super faint. But she was like, you need to come look, Nate. What is this? So
I immediately made him go out and buy me more tests that I could take in the morning. So the next morning comes, it's August 4th. I go, I take my test, and I was like, I don't even want to look, because in my head I was like, it's August 4th. I don't want to ruin August 4th for me, right? I don't want it to be like the day that I get pregnant with Isabella and then like not pregnant with another baby.
Sure.
And so I just didn't want to be sad. I didn't want to be heartbroken. It was already something that I was kind of worried about.
Right. We weren't really trying per se, but we weren't
trying.
But we were also not
preventing.
Yes, we weren't preventing, but we weren't trying. And so we were just living life
Yeah.
and enjoying our baby.
We were being a married couple.
Yeah, with our baby, you know, and so.
Well, our almost 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old. So
she's always going to be my baby.
I know. So I go and I have Nate look at the test, and it is positive. And I remember we just laid in bed so excited, crying. And as I went to go leave for work, Nate said something so like profound to me. And he said, "Isn't it so kind of the Lord that he showed you with this one that you didn't have to try?" And I was like, ugh, oh my gosh, yeah. But
like the same day.
It was just so redemptive. It was like I was so excited on both ends. Like I was so excited with Bella because it was like finally like the Lord did it. He healed me, right? And my whole pregnancy, I was so thankful because I knew that like the Lord had healed me. But then with Addie, our second, I feel like that whole pregnancy, I was just like, how kind of our Father to give me a gift, and I didn't deserve it. Like I did nothing for this. Like, but he just saw us and saw the world and knew we needed Addie and knew we needed Addie in our life and knew that I needed to understand that he was a good father who gives good gifts.
Right. Because then, you know, after we had Bells, I remember like you were in the middle of all your joy of being a mama and finally getting the thing that you've been waiting for. I remember like having conversations with you about your future kids, possible, you know, upcoming kids. And you were scared. You were scared that you were going to walk through the same kind of struggle, that it was going to take another, you know,
it's 2
years or whatever. And you know, because we never had to go to the fertility specialist.
Oh yeah. We never got answers. Kind of, but we never fully knew what was wrong.
Yeah. They were like, we're going to do tests, but we think it's an endometriosis. It's got all the signs of it, but we can't confirm. Right.
Which actually, it's really good that you're talking about this, because I forgot to say that after I had Isabella and my cycle started back again, I remember being like, oh no, this is going to be bad, because I'd only ever known horrible periods, right? Well, in my head, I was like, well, if I got healed of endometriosis, then I won't have them. I won't have bad cycles. And we were in Mexico and I started my period. And I remember my first one after having Bella. And I remember being like, oh no, I had always taken prescription pain medicine. I mean, it was bad.
We were on a cruise.
No, we were at an all-inclusive resort.
With V and the fam.
And so it was me. I had to go to the little gift shop and pay $20 for a box of pads or whatever. So it was terrible. And they did not have prescription pills for me. So I was just like, well, this is it. Either I'm healed or I'm not. Yeah. And I remember I was fine. And then my next cycle, fine. And then my next one, and I remember just being like,
yeah, so
like I'm healed. Like
exactly, and that's the point of this. Is I'm a skeptic by nature, and Brooke knows this, and all my closest friends know this. I'm a skeptic by nature. I don't know. Like I've seen so much of the Lord. I've seen Him come through over and over and over again. I've gotten like words for people that I've never even met. I'll just see them at the store, and like I've genuinely seen the Lord move many times, but I'm still a skeptic by nature, just kind of my default. And it's been, the Lord loves to prove Himself. He loves to prove that this was me. I did this thing. And I remember whenever, I'm saying all that to say that I remember when He gave the word that said you were going to be healed of endometriosis, I was like, yeah, He could totally do that. Of course He can. But then I remember hearing you pray that the Lord would remove the pain of your cycles. And me, just a very practical kind of, guy, I'm like, I mean,
He did enough for you, didn't He, Brooke? No, just kidding.
Well, to me, I've never known a woman to not have, painless cycles. So for me, I'm like, well, I mean.
But I was like bedridden, babe.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. But I remember your prayer was, I'm believing that my cycle will not, I'll have no pain. Like I remember that being your prayer.
And I haven't taken, since I got pregnant with Bella, I haven't taken any pain medicine for my cycle.
And your cycles haven't been painful.
No.
Which is wild to me, because you go from extreme debilitating pain to having cycles with no pain. And I remember in that moment almost being just like convicted by the Lord. Like, do you not think I can do that?
Yeah.
Like, it's a natural thing, right? That, you know, women have painful cycles, but man, he's such a good God. He's such a good father that he would listen to even the prayer that said, Lord, like, you didn't just heal me of endometriosis,
so that I could get pregnant.
Right. You're healing the whole thing. Yeah. And I remember when I was in high school, the Lord convicted me about something similar, and you would think that I learned, but in high school I dealt with pretty severe acne.
Cystic. Right?
I never went to a doctor for it, so it was just bad.
Similar stories.
Yeah, no, for real. It was just bad acne, and you know, I still have like the scarring on it, you know, to it this day. But I remember being at our youth service, and I had I was saved at this point. I really devoted my life to the Lord, and I'd seen him just do crazy things, and I remember hearing in my spirit him saying, "Do you want to be healed of your acne?" Because I was so, like, if you've ever dealt with like bad acne, like it's more than frustrating. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just more than frustrating. And that's an understatement. Yeah. And I just remember being frustrated that day or something about it. And then I remember the Lord just kind of saying, like, do you want me to heal that? And I was like, well, sure. But that's just like, that's not, you know, it's not cancer. It's not, you know,
seems little. All
these big diseases that, man, God's just going to get so much glory from healing this thing. It felt too little.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, just being like, well, yeah, Lord, I do want you to heal it, but like, is that too little?
So interesting.
He's like, no, ask me to heal your acne. And I was like, okay, Lord, I pray that you'll heal my acne. I declare healing over my face. And I remember just touching my face, and my mom would always tell me, don't touch your face. Don't touch your face. Your hands are greasy. You know, it's like, because I touch my face. You know, it's like Jesus touching. Healed. It's like Jesus touching the leper. Like, you don't touch the leper, you know, kind of thing. And so that's the way my mom treated acne.
You were the leper.
Don't touch the acne, and it'll spread. And so I remember touching my face and declaring that over myself, and literally within like 2 weeks, all my acne just started going away.
Yeah.
And I even had friends reach out. Multiple friends reach out.
Oh yeah.
And
even
asking
after
me.
we were married, you had
people like, dude,
it's crazy.
I remember you had pretty bad acne in high school. Like, what did you do? Like, we're, you know, dealing with something similar or whatever. And I would have to tell them, like, these are people, some of them didn't believe in the Lord, some of them were. And I would tell them, I'm like, well, I mean, diet's a big thing too, but at the end of the day, dude, this is really what happened.
The Lord healed me.
I felt like God told me to pray about it and ask him to take it away, and I did.
Yeah. And
you know, some people were just like, yeah, I don't know if I could do that, but you know, maybe I could start eating better.
But hey, I tried eating better. It didn't heal my body. Right. Like, so that's our story on infertility. Yeah. And did you want to ask?
Yeah. Well, I just kind of had like a question for you before we end this. So through all of that, through all of the disappointment and just seeing the Lord come through, like how did your walk with the Lord kind of change? And you kind of talked about it a little bit already, but how did your relationship from the Lord go before infertility?
Yeah.
During infertility, and then just kind of where you're at now.
So when I went to Bible college, everyone at Bible college, it was very much like, you pray for healing, people are going to get healed. And if they don't get healed, it's probably because you didn't have enough faith.
Or you just didn't pray enough times.
Or you didn't pray enough times, or you didn't do it this specific way.
Right.
And I remember believing that, like, the Lord heal, like, it's always God's will to heal. He's going to heal today. And so when I was met with, you know, I believed, and I would pray over my body, and I believed that the Lord would heal me, and then I didn't see it, I had to face the fact that, in a way, I was kind of viewing God as just like a genie. Like, I wanted him to grant every wish that I had, even though I was using scripture to back it up. I was saying, Lord, your word says by your stripes I am healed.
Right. I like to call it Christian spell casting.
Yes.
It's like we're casting these Christian spells using scriptures. And as long as we say them or say the right scriptures or say them with the right, it's like in Harry Potter, Hermione is like, it's not what's
Leviosa. It's Leviosa, whatever.
I don't remember which one it was. But it's like that. It's like, oh, well, you just didn't say that scripture right. You just didn't, you didn't say it with enough faith, or, and it's like, we think we can just kind of throw all these different scripture verses at whatever we're going through, like Christian spell casting. And it's like, that's not how that works. Like, yes, there's faith, and yes, there's declaring his word over you. And there's, right. And it's like, what if you do all those things exactly?
And it doesn't happen.
And it's still not happening the way that you want to see it, or maybe not happening in your timing. So continue.
So I remember I got really disheartened, and I remember thinking like the Lord was withholding from me, and that's not a place you want to be in, because when you start thinking that the Lord is withholding from you, you feel bitter, you feel frustrated. You're not going to go to him as you would before, right?
Because you're mad at him.
And I'm going to be like,
and you feel that he's kind of like not mad at you, but he's
like, what am I doing wrong? Almost. And so, for me, it was very real, raw. Like, I was very honest with the Lord. I wouldn't hide how I was feeling, but there were times where I didn't let him in as close as I could have, because I didn't want to be hurt by him or disappointed by him. But I also will say that in that season, I really learned that I made my promise an idol. Like, I made a baby an idol. What did I want? I wanted that. I wanted that more than I wanted him. And I wanted him to give me that. And I would consider him good if he gave me a baby.
He did that stuff,
And I remember I was super convicted one time when we were in worship. This is after I had both my girls. This will be the last thing that we say, and then we can be done. But I remember we were singing. There was this song that I would listen to when I couldn't get pregnant. And it's by John Mark McMillan, King of My Heart. And I remember singing it, and it says, "You are good, good." And I remember I would declare that, and I'd just be like, I'm believing that. Even though I don't feel it right now, I'm believing it. And then there was this song that had just come out by Jen Johnson, Goodness of God. And we actually sang it. We had planned to sing it at a worship night, him and I. And we found out we were pregnant a few days before that. And I remember singing Goodness of God, and I just remember being like, oh, I'm going to cry. Just, the song says, what does it say, Nate?
All my life you've been faithful.
All my life you've been faithful.
All my life you've been so good.
And I couldn't even sing it, because I was just like, man, it's so true. Like, I finally have what I've been praying for. And so a few years later, it was a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, we were singing those two songs. And I remember saying to the Lord, man, thank you. Like, that's so true. You are good. I am living in the goodness of God. And I felt the Lord tell me, you were living in my goodness then. And if you're dealing with infertility, I just want to say, like, you're in his goodness now. Don't miss his goodness now because you're so bitter. Or if you're waiting for any kind of healing or anything from the Lord, he is our prize. It's not him fulfilling a promise. He is what we want. And I had to learn that in those 2 years, that, like, ultimately, if I never had a baby, he's enough. Like, he is what I'm living for. He's what I want at the end of the day. And I learned that in those 2 years.
Yeah. I love that. There's a girl named Nightbird, and she passed away a couple years ago. And if you've never heard of her, she got her basically notoriety on, I want to say America's Got Talent or something.
Or American Idol, one of those two.
And she has this viral blog post, and it's talking about how God meets her on the bathroom floor. She died of cancer, and but before all of that, like, she wrote this blog, and I would encourage anyone listening dealing with, infertility or just some kind of, sickness or disease or whatever, to go read that, because it's such a beautiful picture about how, we need to find the daily bread right? The manna was literally called, what is it? And every single day we need to ask ourselves, Lord, what is your daily bread for me today?
Yeah.
What is it? Where is it?
That's good.
Right? And asking him to reveal that to you, because he is with you in your struggle. He is with you in your waiting. And it's literally, the blog is called, I want to say it's God met me on the bathroom floor as she was lying on the bathroom floor, writhing in pain. And he meets you there. And one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite songwriters, John Mark McMillan, he has a line, and it's one of my favorite lines, and it's been like one of my, one of the ways that I've kind of shifted the way that I think of God was partly due to this song. And it's and it basically talks about he says, I've got no answers for heartbreaks or cancers, but a Savior who suffers them with me. And then he's got another verse talking about his daughter and how she asks so many questions, and he says, I've got no answers for hurt knees or cancers, but a Savior who suffers them with me. And he's with you in all of it. And exactly right, like what you said, there's never been a season that he wasn't good, even when it's hard to see it. And so anyway, I love you, and I'm super happy that we've been on both sides of the waiting. So proud of you.
Love you.
That's good. Well, I appreciate you guys sticking with us. This episode went a little bit longer than we normally will go, but we also never want to stifle the episode for the sake of it being a certain time frame. So appreciate y'all being here with us today, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.